Hello, everyone. Welcome to Women Atheists Unload, a show produced by your favorite YouTube channel, Skeptic Haven. Thanks for showing up tonight or today, depending on where you are. We are going to have a special guest today, someone who is on the board of Recovering from Religion. Her name is Rachel Hunt, and we are going to talk about herself and then the women that tend to call to recovering from religion, what problems they tend to have, and how they face those issues. So you can join me in a few minutes. In the meantime, you can, as usually, like, subscribe, participate in the live chat or the chat below the video, and I see you in a bit.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement.
Everything I do so instinctive and so passionate. Every word I move so descriptive like an adjective. I got a vendetta against people who patented being negative when you should be getting after it. I got facts over tracks, this and that.
Hello, everyone. So I'm really sorry, but Rachel isn't there yet. She should be coming anytime soon. So in the meantime, I'm going to talk about recovering from religion. For those who don't know what it is, it's 501c3 in the US and in other countries as well, that provides help for people who want to leave religion. So they have open lines where people can call and ask for any advice. They will never try to deconvert or convert anyone to anything. They are just here to listen and offer some advice in case like people are stuck in a family where they can't go away, or those kind of issues. So Rachel, our guest today, has been working in this association for quite a while now, and she's been elected to the board recently. I think it was a couple of months ago. So I wanted to have her here to congratulate her first, and then to talk about how she got there, and all those women who call recovering from religion, what kind of issues they tend to have. So since she's still not there, we're going to play a clip that's on their website. Wes, can you? Thanks.
I grew up in South Africa and grew up in an evangelical Christian home. Most of my family were either pastors or active in one way or the other in the churches.
I was always a very obedient Christian. I did everything. As long as I thought God wanted it, I did it. No matter what it was, no matter how much it hurt me.
I met with a great amount of racism. In the Bible college I went to, racism is very ingrained in the church, and I only really realized that when I came to the US, how ingrained it was.
I was raised a straight white male, and the way I was raised was the only option. I always felt uncomfortable in that role. I always felt uncomfortable being male. It's very much that culture of guilt that the church breeds.
I feel that I lost a large part of my life by being so ingrained in religion for such a long time.
Just the cost of my life and what I had invested into the church, and if it wasn't real, I would lose everything I had sacrificed, you know, because I sacrificed pursuing science, I sacrificed having a career, everything because I thought it was right.
For me, it wasn't recovering from the church or religion directly, because I never truly really believed. I kind of felt like it was all a hoax anyways. So that was easy for me to come out from under. I hadn't been indoctrinated. But the people I had to interact with as an adult very much were. And so that affected me negatively, because people try to impose their beliefs and their way of thinking on you. And when they discover that perhaps you think differently, they're afraid of you. And the first thing they want to do when they're afraid of you is get rid of you.
Recovering from religion has been a way that I could come to meetings and talk to people that had like experiences, and we could put it all out on the table and help each other get over the anxieties that we faced.
Truly meet other people who have gone down similar roads, or who are investigating going down similar roads of whether it's disbelief or change in belief, or just recovering from damages from religion.
Being able to finally get myself out there and meet other people that I knew wouldn't judge me for not being a believer, and could understand how I felt about what I had gone through, and understand why I couldn't keep my faith. Like, that was extremely important for me.
Recovering from religion cares about you. We care about how you feel, where you are in your journey, whether it's just, you know, you want to come and see what we're about, or you really need to just let it out, everything that's been inside, and you just need to let it out. We're there for you. We are here to support you along your journey. We're here to let you know that there's nothing wrong with you.
I'm finally now at a place where I really feel at peace with the people I allow to be part of my life and the people that I get to enjoy in my life.
I didn't have to walk it by myself. I was very much supported, had somebody there.
You don't have to go it alone. You have people there who can relate to you, who can help you through your journey, because they have been through the same thing themselves.
I have been able to and felt free to discover who I really am, what I really value and is important to me, without anybody else telling me what that is.
When you're at home and you're sitting there wondering, you know, is this all I have? I'm alone in the world. I don't feel or think the same way that I grew up, and my family and my friends around me. Know that recovering from religion is there for you, and we care. We care. That's what we're here for, is to help you along the way.
So, as it turned out, I'm the one to blame for Rachel's absence, because, you know, those times I'm in JMT +2, so there's a lot of conversion to make, and I made a mistake, and I asked her to come at the wrong time. So let's give her a few minutes, see if she can come now. Oh, there she is. I'm so sorry, Rachel. It's my mistake.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm doing great. I was just outside, so I'm kind of a little disheveled, but I just saw your email and I went, oh no, I better run in and see if I can catch them. I'm so sorry, everybody.
No, it's me. It's me. I made a mistake. It happens sometimes, you know, with those conversions. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. I would like, if you don't mind, I'd like to just run and get a drink real quick before I start talking.
Sure.
Is that okay? It won't be long.
Go ahead. the issues of different time zones. In the meantime, I can talk to you about a project that the Skeptic Haven team is working on. We are going to have a call-in show, and maybe two. So I won't go into much detail today, but that's coming. The producers are working behind the scenes to make this happen. There's a lot of technical issues to resolve, but that's going to happen. Hi, Rachel.
I'm back. Hello.
Hello.
What were we supposed to be talking about?
First, we're going to talk about you.
Okay, great.
I learned that you got elected to the board of Recovering from Religion recently. So
yes,
congratulations.
Thank you. It's a volunteer position, so I was given the opportunity to do more work, which is great. Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit about your journey inside Recovering from Religion?
Do you want to know before I joined or after I joined Recovering from Religion?
Both.
Okay. Well, before, I was raised in Christian Science, which is not a particularly well-known religion. Most people, if they've heard of it at all, have heard of headlines in the news where some very extreme Christian scientists refused to take their child to the doctor, and the child suffered, some horrible fate. And because Christian scientists believe in healing through the power of faith. It's not that same kind of evangelical laying on of hands, be healed kind of thing that you see, more in the news. It's more of, if it's kind of like the Matrix. They tell you, if you can understand the world the way God sees it, all error, sin, and illness will disappear, right? It's all an illusion.
So it's not even a matter of if you accept God or Jesus in your heart hard enough, then you will be healed. It's more like you have to understand his plan so that you can be healed.
It's like you have to learn to see through the illusion and see the world the way God sees it, because everything is actually perfect. And if you think something isn't perfect, it's a problem with your thinking. That's what we're taught in Christian Science.
So it's basically victim blaming, right?
Oh yeah, but it's very subtle. It's not nearly as dramatic as you think of, like in the more like the more modern evangelical, faith healing is a little bit more theatrical, but this is just a much more subtle and much more intellectual religion. But it does have kind of the same effect, which is to tell you that if there's something wrong with you, it's kind of your fault. Yeah, you should be able to fix it. And if you can't, then you've done something wrong, because it can't be that you're actually hurt or you're actually ill. Now, I want to soften that a little bit, because in the church that I went to and the people that I knew, we were not that extreme. Most families did go to the doctor for things like broken bones or cancer or, some major illness. What we didn't do is we normally didn't really acknowledge things like colds or headaches or, minor injuries. We mostly were just sort of like, oh, well, let's pray. Let's try to, see the truth that, you're perfect in the eyes of God, that kind of thing. But for really obvious major things, most people did go to the doctor. How it affected me most visibly was my mother got me an exemption, a religious exemption from taking biology class in school, which was not super common at the time. I took chemistry instead. One moment, I'm sorry, just a second. So, sorry, my dog just came in with my son. So she's kind of jingling over here. So yeah, I got the biology exemption, so I took chemistry instead. And the other thing was, no one in my family was vaccinated at a time when that was not a popular thing to do. I mean, it didn't affect us. We never had any problems because at that time there weren't a lot of people who were anti-vax, so we had herd immunity, right? But I did get vaccinated later as an adult. So yeah, that's kind of.
You said that they treated minor injuries with that kind of mentality. I assume that it encompasses also everything about mental health.
Yeah, I think at the time I was growing up, I'm 54 now, so I was growing up in the 70s and 80s, and at that time people kind of knew about mental illness, but it was assumed that only a few people had it, you know, and they didn't realize how prevalent these things were. And you know, one of the ways that Christian Science manifests itself in our lives is we just didn't talk about illness. We didn't talk about mental illness or physical illness. If somebody was injured, like I don't know what disease either of my grandparents or any of my grandparents had when they died. I just know that they started to get sick. They went to some Christian Science sponsored, like healing center or something. It was like a nursing home that was, you know, sponsored by Christian Scientists. And then eventually they died and there was a memorial, but no one ever said, oh, they have cancer, oh, they have, you know, tuberculosis or whatever. They never said what they died of. It was just, oh, well, they just died. You know, no one ever wanted to talk about it.
Because they don't want to face the fact that they could have been healed, most likely, by a doctor.
Well, yeah. I mean, the way it was presented was, if you talk about it, you give it power because it's an illusion you see. And so if you spend a lot of time giving it a lot of attention, that will make it grow and make it worse. So yeah. And these were often things that, you know, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that most of these people were going to doctors at the end of their lives and saying, hey, what can you do for me? Like they didn't talk about it, but that doesn't mean it wasn't happening, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, everybody wanted to pretend like either God healed you or it was just your time to die, you know?
Yeah, hearing you telling this, it strikes me how some very, very old tropes about very primitive beliefs, like words and names have power, like believing in something make it real, like thinking about something brings it to life. Those kind of things they have crawled inside Christianity a lot, I think.
Yeah, it's true. And you see it a lot in, this is something that is powerful in the human mind because you see it a lot in fantasy, where there's some sort of like secret language that the words have the power to control the thing if you name it or something like that. And I think that is a compelling idea that a lot of people kind of fall for. So yeah, I think you're right. There's something related in there. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been watching the show called Supernatural recently, and here and in shows like Buffy, Angel, and all those kind of TV shows and movies, they sometimes rely on this, like you see monsters come alive because you make them appear because you believe in them, and yeah, it's amazing how this so-called God-inspired religion hinges so much on very ancient and primitive beliefs.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's pretty. I don't think it's controversial to say that religion lives in a more primitive part of our brain, the part that governs fear and love and primal instincts to survive, and the part of the brain that doesn't really get nuance and and logic and reason. Those are put in a different part of the brain, and I think that yeah, when we're dealing with religion, we're definitely dealing with a more primitive way of looking at the world. For the most part, I mean, there are religions that are highly intellectual, and they try to marry them a lot, but
Yeah.
you know.
So what triggered your the conversion?
Well, it was kind of a long process, but it was like I remember being 7 or 8 years old in Sunday school class and just asking the Sunday school teacher, "Hey, how do we know there's a God?" And I got this look of horror from the teacher, and I realized at that point that I guess I wasn't going to get the answer to that question in Sunday school, so I started looking elsewhere for it, and I have still never found an answer. Uh, so I went through a lot of different things. You know, my mother insisted that I go to church every Sunday until I was no longer living with her when I was 18. I did have other things going on in my life. I was able to, you know, be elsewhere occasionally, but I remember her giving me a lecture at one point where she said, you know, church isn't just something that you do when you have nothing better to do. Church is an obligation. And I'm like, okay, Mom, sure. But the older I got and I the more I learned about the world, the more it became obvious to me that the things we were learning in church were just not related to reality. It was some separate sort of fantasy that it wasn't really that useful to me. Now, when I got older and got married and had kids and started experiencing a lot of, you know, financial hardship and just exhaustion and just generally encountering all the difficulties of life, it was pretty hard to look around at all the people that I knew who were religious, and they just seemed so confident and so serene that, you know, God was just going to protect them from all these issues. And they had this, you know, everything was fine as long as they followed the rules of their religion. And I wanted that. I wanted to feel that sense of security. And I wanted to believe that there was some system of rules or some supernatural entity that could guide me through my life so that I wouldn't make the worst mistakes and things would be okay. And I looked a lot of places. We went to a lot of different churches, including some pretty scary fundamentalist churches. We went to a Church of Scientology for a while. I bought into that for a bit. I bought into Law of Attraction for an embarrassingly long time. Like, I went through a lot of different things just trying to find somebody who could teach me how to be a person that could function in the world. And eventually, after I went through all that, and, you know, some of it helped a little, you know, it's not complete bullshit. Like, some of it helped a little. But then when I discovered atheist YouTube, I was like, oh my God, right. That's obviously the case. Like, that's clearly the place where I belong. Like, these are my people right here. So yeah, it took me a lot of experimentation before I finally settled on just secularism, you know, for me.
Yeah, I remember right after Trump was elected in 2016, I read this very, very long article about, um, I think he was a journalist coming from a very small city, and he was explaining that basically religion doesn't give people the tools to understand the world, and that's why many people stay in there. It's because the outside world is too scary, and so they stay there, not because they really believe, but because they don't feel like they have the tools to go through it, and and those people often are also conservatives because they can't understand how the world is different from their perspective, and that's one of the reasons why Trump was elected. And what you just said, it speaks to that, because if you're not given the tools to understand the world, then living religion is very scary. And as you said, even if you try, then at some point you will have some difficulties and you won't be able to face them, and that's when you will come back, as they hope. So
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, there are many people that have experienced that from both sides, and it is something that it gives religion a lot of power. If they can take hold of your natural and normal fears and turn them to their own purposes, then religion can control you. And it's not like religion's only purpose is to control people. There are a lot of good things that come out of religion too, but people who crave power and crave control over other people are always going to find religion a very comfortable place.
So how did you discover recovering from religion?
I don't actually remember. I probably heard about it on the Atheist Experience or some other atheist, YouTube, because I was watching a lot of that at the time. I had tried volunteering for other organizations. I was at a point in my life where I wanted to contribute and to try to make the world a little bit better place. My life was relatively stable, and I thought, okay, now what can I do to make the rest of the world a little bit better? And I had tried politics. I was actually a precinct chair for the Democratic Party in my area, and that didn't go well. It just wasn't a good fit for me. Plus, oh my gosh, there's so much petty drama in politics. It's ridiculous, and it's so slow, and they barely get anything done. And it was awful. So actually, in 2020, the end of 2020, right after the election, and Trump lost, but still, I was like, oh God, that was just horrifying what just happened. I've got to do something. And so I just looked around and I found recovering from religion. I said, well, I'll try this. Maybe I can help there. And that was the very end of 2021. And I went through my training really quick. And I did my first official, took my first helpline chat as an agent January 2nd, 2021. So that's when I first started. And, I got to tell you, the way that I was welcomed and and supported and felt like I was part of a community, and people were fun and they were cool and they were not uptight, and everybody was really appreciative of the work that I was doing, and I got great feedback. If I needed to change something, people weren't afraid to speak up and say, hey, try this instead. And I felt so instantly like I was in the right place for me. So I just kind of threw myself into it, and now I just have I wear a million hats, and I'm all over the place. And I'm just sort of little Miss RFR now, because I love the work that we do, and I love the people that I'm working with, and I love the people that we get to help. And I really can't say enough good things about the organization. It's full of human beings and people, and nobody's perfect, but they all try real hard. So I'm real happy.
Yeah, so you really strongly and believe in the mission of the association.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know if you read this to everybody before, but the mission statement for RFR is we provide hope, healing, and support to people who are suffering with issues of doubt and non-belief or harm from a religious circumstance. So, I saw that sweet message. And sorry, also to answer your question, Cindy, we can end whatever time you think is appropriate. I don't mind staying longer than we had originally planned or whatever.
Okay.
I'm at your disposal. But yeah, so we get a lot of people who are just, hey, I'm starting to have doubts and I can't talk to anybody about it. I don't really know what to think. And we're very happy to talk to those people. And we get people who are, saying, I'm 100% sure that I don't believe anymore, but I don't know how to tell my family what's going to happen. And we talk to those people. We get some people that are like, look, I just came out of a super conservative religious cult, and I don't want to leave church. I still believe in God, but I need a place that is going to be less extreme. And we go, okay, we can help you with that. One of the biggest issues that we get a lot is people who have mostly deconstructed from their belief, but they still have this nagging fear of hell. And they're like, but what if I'm wrong? What if I'm wrong? What if I go to hell? What do I do? How do I get rid of this fear? And that's, we have a lot of resources to help people with that too. some people are just like, hey, I'm all fine for the most part, but I don't have anybody to talk to because nobody around me gets this and I don't know what to do. And, obviously, podcasts like yours and Recovering from Religion are great places for people to connect with others that are in a similar situation and aren't going to just tell you to come back to Jesus or whatever.
Yeah. So, what about the women who call recovering from religion? What kind of specific issues do they have?
We actually have a women's support group that we have once a month, and of course, the women have the same issues as the men. They have, fear of hell, concerns about family, concerns about how to build a life outside of church. Those are all normal things. But the women have extra things. A lot of religions, especially very conservative religions, including in conservative Christianity, Mormonism, JWs, and Islam, and also Hinduism, there is a lot of misogyny and a lot of a very strong patriarchal system. And so the women have been raised to believe that it is their role to serve the men, that they should be submissive. And in many cases, they've been taught that there's no reason for them to have an education. There's no reason for them to have any ambitions. There's no reason for them to even have any preferences. In fact, it doesn't matter what you want at all. I don't even know why they're not allowed to choose what they eat, what they wear, where they go, how they spend their time, who they marry. They've just been taught that their entire existence is to fill this role of a wife and mother. And it's so sad. Sometimes we get women who are like, I don't even know what my favorite color is because no one's ever asked me before. I mean, it's heartbreaking. And there's a whole spectrum. Some women it's just a little bit, and some women it's moderate, and some women it's extremely severe, that they've just been taught that to be submissive and to play a wife and mother. And there are women who are very ambitious and intelligent and very devoted to their faith, and they are told that they're not allowed to preach. They're not allowed to be missionaries. They're not allowed to do anything but support the men, and the men are the ones that get all the attention and get to make all the decisions. So those are the kinds of things that you get a lot. You also seem to get a lot. There's a lot of concern with the women of how to take care of their children. Obviously, a lot of religions teach that you have an obligation to raise up your children in the church or in the faith, and that if you don't, it is going to endanger their souls. And of course, if you love your children, you don't want their souls to be in danger, even if you don't know exactly what a soul is. And sometimes it's the other way around. Sometimes they think, I realize now that what happened to me was not healthy, and I don't want to put my kids through that. But how do I just change on a dime and tell them that everything that I said last year is now wrong? And, that can be really scary too. So those are the kinds of issues that come up a lot with the women.
So how do you deal with those issues usually?
Well, I think the women mostly figure it out with respect to themselves and their self-esteem. Obviously, we recommend therapy for everyone. We have our sibling organization is the Secular Therapy Project, which is a list of licensed and correctly educated therapists who only use evidence-based methods. And so, if people are suffering from trauma or any kind of severe issues, we always send them to therapy. I mean, we think everybody should go to therapy. Not everyone can. Not everyone has access to it, unfortunately, especially here in the United States. It is not, it's expensive, and it's not always covered by insurance, and not everybody has insurance, so it can be rough. But for people who have access to it, we always recommend trying to get a good secular therapist. Lacking that, finding community who supports you and actually wants you to be you, and enjoys you for who you are, and doesn't want to push you into a little tiny role, can really help. And people really start to blossom when they give themselves permission to do so. So most of the women do kind of figure it out. with respect to the children, they usually are not nearly as badly affected as the women are concerned for them. We have resources on how to raise children in a secular way so that they get good morals and they learn, they learn good critical thinking skills and they have good life skills that have nothing to do with what they were taught in church. And we found that it can be very protective for children just to teach them general critical thinking, and it doesn't have to be directly about religion. It doesn't even have to directly contradict what they're hearing. Maybe their grandparents are believers, or maybe one parent is a believer and one isn't. But if you teach children just to ask questions and try to find the answers, try to figure out how to know what's true, they figure it out. Kids usually, they grow up with a little bit of skepticism and they'll go, oh, I get it. Okay, so grandma says this, but this is what I actually see in the world, and I'm going to trust what I see and not just blindly believe what people tell me. So they usually do okay,
Yeah, that's great.
Thanks for the banner. Yes, need to talk. 184 I doubt it. That's our helpline. You can call. We also have a chat line where you can just chat in, and we have real people, no chat bots. We have actual volunteers who are trained in peer support that can talk to you. So that's great. Sorry, Cindy, you're about to ask a question.
Yeah, you don't use AI in your chat boxes?
No, we can't afford it. Are you kidding? We're a shoestring organization. We can't afford that kind of sophisticated AI. But we do occasionally have clients who will ask us if we're bots, and we're like, nah, no.
So if I remember correctly, if you want to enter those calls on this number you see right here, or if you want to respond to people on the chat, you have to follow a certain training, right?
Yes, we actually have really, really good training and support for our volunteers. The first thing that you need is to be relatively stable in your own deconstruction, and just more or less emotionally and psychologically stable. And the first thing we do is go to recoveringfromreligion.org and find the volunteer tab and click on that. And you can read our policy manual and you can apply to be a volunteer. After that, you will be contacted by someone who will set up an interview, and you'll do a video interview, and they'll just ask you a few questions about your life and why you want to volunteer and that sort of thing. And then if you're accepted as a volunteer, then you get sent to whatever program you're volunteering for, and you will go through a training process. Mostly what we learn is reflective listening and the general principles of peer support, how to talk to someone who is needing support and needing help without giving them advice or lecturing them or judging them, which, I guess there are some people that do that naturally. I had to learn it. Like it was, I had to actually study to learn how to do that. Yeah, we're pretty good about making sure that people learn how to do peer support really well, which is a great skill. Even if you don't end up volunteering, it's so good to learn how to do that, even if it's just to support your friends and family.
Yeah, what's one of the worst cases that you had to manage? Not giving too many specifics because that's not the point, but I want to show what kind of issues sometimes you have to deal with.
Mm-hmm. Well, the worst ones are the ones that we really can't do anything to help them. That's really what hits us the hardest. We've had, girls and boys or queer people calling from Muslim majority countries, which can be really oppressive, and they're afraid to tell anybody and they don't know what to do. And there's a lot of pressure to be performative in their belief. And there's a lot of pressure to marry who their parents want them to marry and have a lot of kids and raise their kids in the faith. And this can be really, really difficult for them. we do often get people who want to leave those countries, and we don't have the resources to help them with that. We send them to other organizations that do have a mission to help people get out if they're in danger. But that's really heartbreaking when you hear people that are just feel stuck. And it's worse when the person is extremely young. We sometimes get people as young as 13 contacting us, and we're like, well, how long till you're independent from your parents? And they're like, 5 years. That's a long time to feel like you're hiding your true self and that you're under pressure. So that can be really difficult. There are a lot of people that are extremely isolated. Their families keep them homeschooled, don't necessarily allow them a lot of access to the internet. They don't necessarily have access to social media. And they feel really lost and stuck, and that's really heartbreaking. We also get, obviously, other things that we're not necessarily able to help people with is if they have severe mental illness. Sometimes people have something like, OCD or schizophrenia or some sort of psychosis, and they contact us believing that they've actually just talked to a demon or something like that. And we can talk to them, but obviously that's the sort of thing that they're going to need more professional mental health care. And again, we'll send them the Secular Therapy Project. We'll help them as much as we can. We'll listen to them and offer them emotional support, but those are things that we can't fix. Now, the things that we can help with are things like, how do you talk to your family about the fact that you're having doubts or no longer believe? We have lots of resources on how to do that. It can be scary, and there's no guarantee it's going to go well, but we can help you figure out how to do it in a way that gives you the best possible outcome. And we can help you figure out if it's even right for you to do so. Some people, it's not safe to tell people. And if you need to stay in the closet, that's okay too. It's up to you. We do also talk to a lot of people in the LGBTQ community who feel like they're not accepted by the religious community, like they're just not allowed to exist, and they either have to hide or they need to leave the community, and that's really rough. A lot of them are young people. That can be really hard, but again, we do have resources and community where we can help support them. And we can't fix the fact that their parents don't get them or that their community doesn't get them or their church has rejected that they exist. But we can say, hey, we love you. We care about you. We want you to be okay. And we don't want you to change in order to be accepted. So we have that. And fear of hell is a big deal. We have a lot of resources in overcoming fear of hell. It can be tricky, but it's possible. And a lot of people have done it.
Yeah, I guess there's a very small silver lining here. It's that if you have 13 years old calling you, it means that somehow you have a relatively good reach, and enough people know about you that you can do some actual good job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We are starting to become more and more well known. People have heard of us, which is really great. And Dr. Ray, the founder of Recovering from Religion, really did a good job when he set it up. He made it so that it was able to grow. And not a lot of people know this, but he's written 2 books on organizational psychology. And that's why Recovering from Religion is such an exemplary organization in terms of how its systems work and how supportive it is of the volunteers. There are a lot of people out there that are secular that want to help and want to create organizations that are supportive of secular people, but not all of them have the skill to create systems that don't fall apart in drama. It happens to us just as much as it happens other places that, there's personal conflict and sometimes there's drama in the secular world. And that happens a lot less at the Recovering from Religion organization than it does other places because Dr. Ray really knows what he's doing.
Yeah, he should be on here on the channel in about a month. He's always a delight to talk to. I had him on my channel a while ago. he's just
He's so much fun.
such a lovely person. I mean,
He is so lovable.
Yeah,
He's just a
yeah,
great guy.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited that you're going to have him on the show because he has the expertise to talk about where this stuff comes from, like the psychological aspect, where it comes from and what you can do about it. You know, I can talk about the organization and my personal experience, but he's the one that has the expertise and he can answer all those technical questions about, you know, why is it like this and what do we do next, you know?
Nice. What else do I
Would you like me to
about?
talk about the different programs that we offer?
Sure.
Because you did talk about the helpline, which is probably one of our most visible programs, and that's where you go if you need immediate support. If you've had a fight with your mom or you're just having a crisis of faith and you're just not sure who to talk to, you can call us or chat with us, and we will try to have a volunteer online. We're a 100% volunteer organization, so there isn't always someone available, but we do try. And if you attempt to contact us and no one is there, you do have an opportunity to schedule a phone call or schedule a chat, and you can always try back. We do want to talk to you, but sometimes there just aren't quite enough of us to get to everybody. So that's the first thing, is a helpline. We also have support groups, and support groups is kind of my thing. I'm the director of the support group program, and this is where it's like a small group therapy type thing. It's peer support. It's where you go when you want to talk to other people that have been through what you've been through. So we have about 32 groups right now that meet monthly. Most of them are still meeting online. Everything kind of went online during the pandemic. And then some of them have gone back to going in person. I think we have about 7 or 8 in person that are meeting monthly, but most of them meet online, which means that you can go to any of them. You don't have to find one near you within driving distance. You just find one that fits your schedule. And with 32 of them, that's almost one every single day. So you can find something that you can go to. And almost all of them are just general recovering from religion support groups. So it's for anyone who's experiencing any issues of doubt, non-belief, or religious harm. But we do also have some specialty groups for people in particular circumstances, such as the women's group. That one meets once a month. And I believe, I should have checked this before I came on, but I believe this month's meeting is next Saturday evening at 7 Central. Please check the calendar because don't quote me on that, but I think it's next Saturday night. We also have an LGBTQ meeting, a group that meets monthly. And we also have a meeting that is for people who have survived the loss of a loved one who died by suicide. That is our Suicide Loss Survivors program. That's our newest support group, our newest specialty support group. And we started that because it came to our attention that people who had suffered loss by suicide were atheists, were not being supported, because apparently all of the support that's out there is religious. And if you're not religious, then you just don't get the same kind of comfort from what they have to say, and they're also not that interested in supporting you. So we do have that group as well. We also often do special groups for particularly difficult times of year. For instance, we usually do a specialty support group, an extra one, on American Thanksgiving Day, which is often a very a hard day for people who are maybe no longer with the communities or the families that they were with previously. Same thing for Christmas. Our Suicide Loss Survivors group actually debuted on Valentine's Day this year in February. That was when they had their first meeting. So Valentine's Day can be a triggering day for a lot of people as well. So we try to support people in that way. Then we also have the RFRX talks, which are weekly on Monday nights. We get speakers who have some relevance to the topic of recovering from religion come in and give a talk, and it's done live over Zoom, kind of like this. And so you can join when it's live, and You can chat in with questions and you can kind of participate a little bit. And then it's also recorded and it goes on our YouTube channel. So you can see all the past Recovering from Religion RFRX talks on our YouTube channel. And there's some great stuff in there. It's really like, if you're interested in the topic of recovering from religion and you've got some time, go to the Recovering from Religion YouTube channel. There's just some amazing, really incredible information in there from, anywhere from just a person who's experienced something that they want to tell their story, all the way through. We get lots and lots of experts. So it's really a good channel. We also have a blog, which again has articles by experts and also just by regular people who want to tell their stories. My story is up there on our blog. It's called Excommunications is the name of our blog. So that's a great place to go if you just want to get, especially if you're looking for stories of people who have recovered. That's a good place to go for inspiration, to see that it can be done and that it's not an insurmountable obstacle. We also have an online community. Now, this is private to the point that you've probably never heard of it. We don't advertise it on our website, and there's no place you can go and just click a link and get into it. The only way that you can join our online community is to talk to a helpline agent or sometimes a support group leader, and they will have an invitation sent to your email address. It's 100% invitation only, which means that we don't get trolls. Now, you tell me of a social media site where you get no trolls. Like, that doesn't happen up there, right? So to me, it's the safest place on the internet. If you are feeling fragile and you really need support and you do not want to be in a place where someone's going to come on and be cruel to you or to say something that you really don't need to hear, the Recovering from Religion online community is for you. All you have to do is chat in or call into the helpline and ask them, and they'll ask you a couple of vetting questions because they need to make sure you're a good fit for the community. They'll send you an email, and then we have a whole bunch of channels. Some of them are general and some of them are specific. And we use the Slack app, which, if you don't know Slack, it's pretty good for this sort of thing. It's a nice social media app, but it's also kind of like Discord. If you've been on Discord, it'll be pretty familiar. So I'm a big fan of the online community. It's a great place to meet other people. Now, I do want to say that the online community is super private. We do get a lot of people on there who need to be anonymous and are very concerned about their security. So that is not the place to go and meet people that you're going to go have a cup of coffee with. You will probably never know their real names, and you will not know exactly where they live. And these are not going to be your best friends, and you're not going to find a girlfriend there. Like, that is not what it's for. This is for talking to people as you're all in that fragile recovery state and you need support, but it's not the place to go and actually meet a person that you're going to meet in real life, right? Trying to think if I've missed anything. I didn't bring my cheat sheet. If you are interested in volunteering, please consider it. It's a great place to volunteer, and we are in great need of support group leaders in particular. We used to have 63 groups all over the world during the pandemic when everybody was at home. And then a lot of people started to go back to work, and a lot of our support group leaders weren't able to continue. So we have a lot of inactive groups, and there's a lot of gaps in our coverage. Most recently, I want to implore anyone who speaks Spanish to help us out, because we used to have a Spanish speaking support group that met, and it was centered in Mexico City and met twice a month. And that leader has just left, and we no longer have anything for people who are Spanish speakers, and that breaks my heart. So I would really love to have someone who could help us serve that population. So that's sort of my main pitch right now. We have places for people. If you speak any language other than English, especially if you're bilingual, that would be incredibly helpful. We of course, there's people all over the world that speak all languages that need us. But just today, I'm mostly focused on the Mexico one because I'm very sad that we lost that particular group.
I may be asking a stupid question here, but recently I saw a couple friends lose a pet, and you spoke earlier about people who lose family from suicide. We know that people who lose a parent also, um, they if they're not religious anymore, especially if it hasn't been very long, they struggle with this. And I wonder if it's also the case with people who lose a pet, especially if they're alone. Um, Often having a pet is it's the only being you can communicate with, and I wonder if you sometimes have calls about this.
Hmm. Yes, yes. Anytime anyone important to you dies or is threatened with death, you can start being confronted with the issue of death, and it can be a real existential crisis if you are accustomed to believing that you're going to see that person again or see that beloved pet again, and then suddenly it hits you really hard that, oh, they're actually gone. Like, this isn't a temporary separation, they're gone forever. And that you have to grieve all over again, right? And sometimes, you end up finding yourself grieving everybody in your life who has ever died,
Yeah,
because you hadn't grieved them before because you believed you were going to see them again. And yeah, definitely a pet can be a trigger for that process. And of course, they have very deep grief for the loss of their pets. So yeah, and a lot of times people think they're doing okay, and they're like, yeah, my recovery's going well. I feel like I've got some friends, and I feel like I'm starting to, believe in myself a little more, and my deconstruction's all right. I'm doing fine. And then a pet dies, and then they just spiral, and they go, I don't, people can
yeah,
fall into like a nihilist, existential crisis. And, what's the point of any of it? It can be really
yeah.
scary. Yeah.
So do you have a list of the countries where recovering from religion is present?
Yes, it's a pretty short list, unfortunately. We're all over the United States, although there are some places, some states that we're missing. We have right now, we only have one Canadian group. We have 3 in Australia, 1 in New Zealand. We no longer have the one in Mexico, and we have 1 in the Baltics in Europe. And that is it right now. We really, really want to expand internationally and, plug those gaps in our coverage in the US as well. So, anyone that thinks that you would like to help us out, please give us a call, or, click that volunteer button, because we have lots of places that we can use you.
Yeah, I talked about this with Daryl, and I considered doing it for the French-speaking countries, Belgium, France, uh, but I, I don't think I'm ready for this kind of responsibility yet.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I'd like to do something about this.
Mm-hmm. Well, you're already doing your part, Cindy. I mean, you're doing this podcast, and
Yes.
that is a valuable service that you're doing to the community. So I don't feel like you have an obligation to help us out as well. But of course, we would love to have you if you felt like you had the time and the energy to do it. That would be great.
Yeah, the thing is, the French community is a bit different, because whether it's in France or Belgium, it's both pretty secular countries, and religion is not very present. So so yeah, the question is, do we really need this? But or how often would we need someone to be available? Or it's those kind of questions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what we find from people in Europe for the most part is that a lot of people are secular. A lot of people are, you know, religion doesn't come up a lot, and it's just not a big deal over there. But there are some very there's some very strong religious communities, and people in those communities tend to be pretty extreme and pretty isolated. And when they come out of them, no one understands why they're so traumatized. No one really gets it. And so they need people who understand the effect that religion can have, because a lot of people that were raised secular just don't get why it's such a big deal. So they do need support. There may be fewer people that are under the influence of religion, but the ones that are need a lot of support. I would think I would be thrilled to have a support group that was for French speakers, and that would be something that a French speaker, I mean, they would probably need you to be bilingual, because most of the administration for recovering from religion is done in English, but a support group leader only has to devote about 4 hours a month. Once you finish your training, you just have to do your 2-hour support group, and then whatever, support, whatever kind of, ancillary tasks you need to prepare and file your report and stuff for the support group. So it's not nearly as much of a responsibility as you might think. The training takes a little bit of time, but it doesn't have to be time consuming, and you can, kind of spread it out if you need to. But the actual volunteering, it's really only one evening a month. So it's not that time consuming, but it can be an emotional burden. You're going to have to listen to people tell their sad stories for 2 hours, and that can be a drain too. But one of the things that we have for volunteers that you probably also would never hear about, because this isn't on the website either, is we have a Support the Supporters group. So it is a support group that is only for RFR volunteers. So if you ran your own support group, or, answered the helpline a few times that month, and you've kind of got some stuff built up that you really need to talk about, you come to our Support the Supporters group, and we all get to talk to each other about our experiences volunteering and kind of unburden ourselves and support each other. So that's something else that we offer as well.
Yeah, it's what Facebook is missing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All the people who moderate the content, they don't have that kind of support, and they definitely need it. But yeah, thanks for the information. I will think about it.
Yeah, well, again, no pressure. You're already doing your part. The future, or anybody out there who's listening, we really can use the help, and it can be extremely rewarding.
Okay. Is there anything you would like to talk about?
Oh, you froze for a second. Did you ask a question?
Is there anything else you want to talk about?
Golly, I think you asked me such great questions, Cindy. I know that the purpose of the conversation was to talk about how this affects women. And I think women do get hit the hardest, and particularly, the intersectionality of it just gets worse and worse, just like everything. The people that suffer the most are people who are not men, who whatever, the people who can't fit into that little box that they want you to fit into, those are the people that suffer the most. And it can be really tough to deal with that, and also feel rejected by your religious community, So we try really hard to be supportive of the LGBTQ community, of women, of people of color, because it's just life is hard enough, and when you're treated like you are less important than other people, that can that can just seep into your internal. You don't deserve to be treated badly, no matter who you are. You deserve to be loved and supported, and you deserve to have people listen to you, and for you to come to your own conclusions, and for you to believe what you think is right and do what you think is right. And we are going to do our best to support you as much as we can, because that's what we're here for.
What about single mothers? Because for a very long time, single mothers were outcast by religion and very, very poorly treated. Like we heard of these stories in Ireland. Is it still the case to have mothers of
You froze
children
up.
who were...
Sorry, is it still the case? What? You froze up for a second, and I didn't hear the rest of that sentence. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Single mothers, mothers of children who were born outside marriage, for example, those kind of things. Well, we know that, let's say 50 years ago, they were put on the side of society. Is it still the case? Do you still notice that in the women who call?
Oh yeah. What? Of course, it depends. Like there's a broad spectrum, and like every church community is slightly different from the one next to it, and so there are very extreme fundamentalist and legalistic and high control groups, and then there are more moderate groups, and then there are more liberal groups or less controlling groups. So and this spectrum exists on almost every religion. You can say Hinduism, and there'll be very high control, very extreme, very legalistic Hinduism groups, and then there will be Hindu groups, and there will also be more moderate, and then much more like relaxed. So, and that's true for Christianity, and it's true for Islam, and it's true for pretty much every religion. There's a whole spectrum. But for those that are in high control groups, that the failure to fit into that specific box of what they want a family to look like can be incredibly isolating, and people do get punished or ignored if they can't fit that image. You hear single people feeling like they don't belong at church because they're not married. You hear definitely single mothers. It can be really rough. There seems to be sometimes this implication that if you couldn't attract a husband who would stick around and raise your children, it must be your fault, right? Which is like, it's not hard enough to be a single mother without also being blamed for the fact that the men didn't do their end of the bargain, like it's just crazy. But yeah, for sure, that can be incredibly rough. And there are a lot of women that have a lot of kids because the church told them that to be a mother was their highest calling, and that they have an obligation to the Lord to, have as many children as possible. And you've got these women who are responsible for 6, 7, 8, 9 kids, and they're not getting the support from the church. Now, some churches do support, women with a lot of kids. There are some that are better about it, but there always does seem to be that thing like, you do need to get a husband, right? You need a husband, right? Like if you would just get a husband, then you wouldn't need us so much, right? Like, yeah. And that's not great either, but yeah.
Well, I think we talked about everything we wanted to talk about. So I'd like to thank everyone in the chat for your comments and sometimes very nice comments. If you like this show and if you want to see more, please like, subscribe, comment, share. You can also join our Patreons who at the moment are Sunny Shell, myself, Phil Calderone, Rion, Kathy Cotton, Deborah Grace, Aaron Coalson, Michael Wiseman, Deneen, and Deneen Murphy. Thank you for you guys. This will be a tremendous help when we're going to start the call-in show, which should come in the next couple months, I would say. Please don't hit me if I'm wrong here, but it should be around this. So thanks again, everyone, and I wish you a very, very nice weekend, and I see you next time. And thanks, Rachel.
I don't ever slow up, no, I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up. I don't ever slow up, no, I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't
I do, so instinctive and so passionate. Every word I move, so descriptive like an adjective. I got a vendetta against people who patented being negative when you should be getting after it. I got facts over tracks, this and that, spitting slow, spitting fast. I could roast, I could gas, think I'm okay at last, but I don't know if that can erase all the past. And the pettiness, a reflection of the emptiness. Hilarious, you think you're worth my time, you're delirious. Mysterious, because you hide behind a fake exterior. Inferior, you know